Alrighty, well, thank you for joining. This is preparing for financial aid. This is hopefully going to be a nice and short session where we're going to go over some tips and tricks for financial aid, how it all works, how you apply for it a little bit. We're just going to scratch the surface and kind of maybe connect some of those dots so that when we dive deeper later this week into financial aid 101, you'll have a good knowledge base and you'll feel a little bit more confident and it doesn't feel like such a shockwave when you're getting hit with all that information. My name is Marielle Starrett, and I'm an education and career pathway specialist here at Granite Advance. And that just means that I love helping people figure out what they want to do with their future and how they're going to pay for that. And part of that is understanding not only what financial aid is, but where you can find it, what kind of opportunities are available for families as they pay for college. So financial aid is so much more than things like loans. It is anything and everything that you use to cover the cost of college or whatever pathway that you choose other than college. So that includes things like trade and apprenticeship programs, etc. I like to think of financial aid in a couple different ways. First, the type of aid, so how it's distributed, and then where you find it. So who's the person who's actually paying that? Typically, we see financial aid come in two forms. We see that come in gift aid and self-help aid. The difference here is gift aid is money that is given to you, right? That's something that you don't have to pay back. It's given to you based on something that you earned or deserved in the form of merit-based aid, or it is given in the form of need-based grants. So that is something that you don't have as much autonomy over. This is based entirely on your family's financial situation. Self-help aid, on the other hand, is something that you might have worked for or applied for, something like a federal loan or the federal work study program. Merit-based scholarships are, to give it a little bit more context, those are things that you have earned, deserved, or done something to achieve. So this could be something like athletics if you're playing at a D1 or D2 level. This could be community service, or most commonly we'll see academic merit-based scholarships. Sometimes you'll even be able to see what that merit-based scholarship range might be for you. So you say, oh, I'm a New Hampshire resident and my GPA is such. So at this school, I may be looking at this amount in merit-based scholarship. Nice thing about that. Need-based scholarships are based entirely off of your family's financial situation. If you want a little bit of an estimate of what that package might look like, you may be able to see some need-based aid through things like net price calculators, or even an SAI estimator might be a good determinant of that. Again, it's just an estimate. These are things that you can do to kind of bolster out what you may be looking at, but you won't know your financial aid award until you have that financial aid award letter from your specific colleges, and which is when you can kind of put those pieces together, calculate that bottom line, and figure out how to pay for it. Other sources of financial aid are those federal and federal student loans. Those are the loans that are in the student's name for the duration of the loan. They have set amounts for each of the 4 years that you are going to school. As a freshman, you'd be looking at $5,500 in federal student loans. Those might come in subsidized versus unsubsidized. Difference there is when they start accruing interest. Actually, they both start accruing interest from the day they're dispersed, but those subsidized loans, the government is paying the interest on your behalf while you're still full-time enrolled. Work study, that's your on-campus job. That's up to you. You may be eligible for the federal work study program, which is just a grant kind of subsidized amount that the college receives in order to help pay for student paychecks. It's up to the student to go get that on-campus job and work the hours to get a paycheck, and then they can use that paycheck however they see fit. So maybe that's it's October, maybe that's paint a pumpkin night with your roommate and the other girls on your floor, or the other people that you know. Maybe that's you're getting your Halloween costume ready, something like that. Maybe it's just pizza or popcorn because you're cozying up to watch Hocus Pocus or whatever else it may be, or something totally not Halloween related too. It could be something like your tuition or groceries or anything like that. Where do you find financial aid? I think of financial aid coming from three main sources. That's federal, institutional, and private. So the federal sector has those federal student loans, it has federal grants, the work study program is housed in the federal sector. All of that's applied through with your FAFSA. Then there's institutional funds, so you might hear things called endowments. This is money that the college has access to. So old tuition that they've been cashing in, because a lot of colleges are either nonprofit or for-profit, but they've been making money through through tuition, and they have kind of the little piggy bank that they may be able to give you some money out of. They might give out their aid based on need, or they might give out their aid based on merit. We think about schools like Dartmouth. It's an Ivy here in New Hampshire, right? Their admissions class is already naturally attracting a high level of merit, so they don't need to pay to entice high merit individuals to apply to their institution. So they offer their aid entirely based off of need, because that's what they're trying to accomplish as an institutional goal. They're trying to be as equitable to every student who is eligible for Dartmouth's kind of like merit-based threshold. They want to make sure that that opportunity is preserved for families who have higher need, whereas other schools might offer merit-based aid because they want your crazy great brain or your great kicking leg for their team, whatever it may be. Or they might offer a little bit of both, right? So have that conversation with admissions. That's a totally normal conversation to have. And they would probably encourage it and say, oh, wow, this person's really thinking about their plan and is forward thinking and is maybe ready for college. Private sector, you see both scholarships and loans. So scholarships is a form of gift aid. So that's money that you earn by applying to that scholarship. Maybe we've got a scholarship here at Granite Advance. One of our categories is focused on merit. We also have 3 other categories. One's based on leadership and community service. One's based on first generation students. And the only thing you have to do to earn or deserve it is to tell us your story, be who you are, right? Because we think there's a lot of merit in that in itself. So scholarships exist in the private sector. We always talk about scholarships when you want to start close to home and work our way out in rings that way, so that we are eligible for the most amount of money. And then there's loans. Private loans come in all different shapes and sizes. You'll cross this bridge a little bit later in the process, but it's nice to know that federal loans do exist. And there are people around who are willing to answer those questions, including myself, including other members of our team. And we've got a whole nother team at Granite Advance that will sit down and talk to you about that as well. If you have questions there, we have other webinars on loans, things like that. Keep an eye out on our website. So once you know what types of aid exist, what types of aid you might need, then you want to actually apply for this aid. So how do I put my name in the hat for that type of aid? Most commonly, you will apply for aid through financial aid forms. There are 2 common financial aid forms. The first is the FAFSA. That is how you become eligible for any of that federal aid. So any federal grants, most commonly you'll hear the federal Pell Grant or the FSEOG grant, those federal loans, both subsidized and unsubsidized, as well as the federal work study program. All of those you apply for through your FAFSA. Your FAFSA does so much more than just apply for those programs too, checking your eligibility. It also generates something called your SAI, which helps all of the other pieces of the puzzle, so the institutions as well as the private sector, understand what your demonstrated financial need is. So it's a great opportunity for you to kind of file. Typically only takes these days 15-20 minutes to file a FAFSA. So long gone are the days where you would have to sit and toil away for hours to file your FAFSA, figuring things out. The CSS profile, on the other hand, this is an institutional form, so it's a private form. So some colleges opt to use the CSS profile as an additional input. So you might have to file your FAFSA and your CSS so that they can see a wider range of what your family's assets, income, information may look like. Typically, that's because they are trying to meet more of your demonstrated financial need, and they want to have a clearer picture of what your financial need may be. Unlike the FAFSA, in which the first F stands for free, CSS has no Fs. So you do have to pay to file your CSS. It's $25 for your first school and then $16 per any additional school. But there are fee waivers available. So if you qualified for something like an SAT fee waiver, or if your income matches thresholds, that's automatically calculated as you go through the smart form, you may have that bypassed at the end. The CSS is run by the College Board, and you'll find that FAFSA on studentaid.gov. So the first step is to create your account. So the FAFSA, you get one account for your entire life. It's attached to your social security number. If you have a social security number and you are a US citizen, then your account, you can create your account and file your FAFSA on the same day. That's new as of this year. If you do not have a social security number, or you're an eligible non-citizen, or you're a non-eligible non-citizen and you still want to file your FAFSA anyway, it's going to take a few days for your account to be verified and your identity to be verified. So just be aware of that and build in some extra buffer time. CSS profile, if you have an account for the SAT, or maybe you took AP tests, things like that, then you already have an account and the student uses their account. Parents are able to create a separate account if they would like to, or maybe you have a situation of divorce in your family, then you would have the student files with kind of, let's say, parent number one, and then parent number two can have a separate account, and then you can add it that way. On your FAFSA, everybody gets a separate account. So in the event that there is a divorce, then it would be the student has the primary account. So the student gets their account, they create it. It's tied to your social, so you're remembering your username and password for the rest of time. And then you have what is called a contributor. So how you determine a contributor can be a little bit tricky. There is something called the parent wizard or contributor wizard posted on studentaid.gov, which can be a really useful tools for families who are like, okay, I don't quite understand the whole contributor system, who would be, or maybe I have a more unique system. Highly recommend that. But it boils down to this. So a student needs an account, and then if they are deemed to need a contributor, so they're a dependent student, cases that would make you an independent student, not a full list, but if you were a member of the armed forces, if you've got children, if you're over the age of 24, if you were an orphan, ward of the court, or in foster care since you were 13, legally emancipated minors, things like that, would deem you an independent student. So those are the folks who wouldn't need a contributor account. But if you do need a contributor on your FAFSA, then the student needs an account and a contributor needs an account. And sometimes students need not one, but two contributors. So the question then becomes, if the student is dependent, you go up a level to their biological parents and you say, okay, are these people married? Yes, they're married. Okay, then do they file taxes jointly or separately? If they file their taxes jointly, then only one of the parents needs a contributor account and they'll speak on behalf of both. If they file their taxes separately, then both parents need contributor accounts. If they are unmarried and one provides more financial support, then that person needs a contributor account. And then if that person has since remarried, their spouse, depending on how they file their taxes, may or may not need an account. There's lots of kind of intricacies. Again, use that parent wizard. It'll be super helpful for you. And then come back later this week. We're going to do more of a deep dive on contributors, financial aid, all of those things on what you'll need. But for now, all you need to know is if you go to studentaid.gov, you can create an account as a student, and your parents, they can create an account as well, or they might already have an account and they have to reset their password, things like that. Next up is getting ready. This is really what we're here for tonight. So before you sit down to file either of your financial aid forms, the best thing that'll make that process, which can be daunting, a little easier, is to have everything you need ahead of time ready for you. So for your FAFSA, you're going to need that login, that account that you created. You'll need your legal name as it shows up on your social security card. If it doesn't match, it's going to cause a whole lot of problems when they're trying to verify your information through Homeland Security and the IRS and all those things. So make sure if you go by Will and your legal name's William, make sure you write William on all your financial aid forms and all your college applications so that everything all matches. And then you can tell them when you give them a handshake and you say, hi, my name is William, but most people call me Will. And go by that, right? In college, a lot of people called me Elle, but I wouldn't go by that these days. So I would still, hand out, hi, my name is Marielle, and I'm putting that on all of my forms. And that way there's consistency there. So if you're looking at my freshman transcript, you're gonna know, oh, who's this girl Elle and why is she doing so great? I want to take credit for that, right? So I want to make sure I'm using my full name. You'll also need social security numbers or A numbers if it's applicable to you. And then you'll need prior tax information. So I know a lot of young students might not have filed taxes in 2024. It'll automatically be checked and verified with the IRS that there's nothing on file. But for folks who did file their taxes in 2024, it's nice to have a copy of your return handy in case you need to pull or reference any of those line numbers on things like your 1040, etc. Not every FAFSA form has you checking your tax return. Sometimes it's automatically pulled in, but in the event that you need it, it's nice to have it there. You will also need your current account balances for anything non-retirement, your primary residence, things like your cash checking, savings account, trust funds, UGMAs, UTMAs, stocks, bonds, all of the above. If you own your own business or farm, you'll need evaluations of the assets of the business for that as well. If you own multiple properties, if you have a cabin, beach house, lake house, those types of things, you will need all of that financial information to input onto your financial aid form, the FAFSA. You will also need, if you are a first-year student or a returning student, you'll need a list of colleges that you want to add to your FAFSA. So if you're already in college, this is nice and easy. It's just the college that you plan to go to next year. So maybe that's the college you're already at. Maybe that's the college you're transferring to. If you are applying to colleges, this is not just the colleges that you got into, but any college that you could see yourself stepping foot onto next year. You can list up to 20. If you've got more than that, feel free to throw a question in the chat and I can help you out with that. CSS profile, they're going to look for a whole lot more information, right? Your login, again, it's going to be that SAT, ACT, AP login. You'll need tax returns, not just for prior years, but through the current tax return. So you'll need 2 sets of tax returns. You'll need income documentation. So if you have things like W-2s, you'll need account balances for everything. So including retirement, including businesses and farms, all real estate. So that's the value of your primary residence, your family home, and any others, as well as that list of schools too. So double check if you need to file a CSS profile to make sure that the schools that you want to send it to, you actually need one for. So don't pay to send something if you don't need it. Now you're ready to apply. Both the FAFSA and the CSS are open now. They opened October 1st. So when you're thinking of gearing up for next year, kind of mark that in your head. October 1st is typically when the forms open. We have seen in years past that they've opened later. This year, they actually opened just a smidge early. So just double check and be like, okay, October 1st, I have to file this again next year. It's going to open sometime around October 1st. So maybe I'm going to plan on my fall break. That way I can do this with my parents when I come back, or maybe I'm going to schedule October 15th is going to be the day that I file my FAFSA every year or something like that. Kind of lock that in your brain. For those who are applying for the first time, it's a good opportunity to check your school's financial aid deadlines. So check not only if they need the FAFSA and the CSS, but also when do they need those due by. And then I personally, I'm a little type A, I'm a little organized. I've always got my notebook. I recommend that you put in your FAFSA, your CSS, at least 3 days before it's due. That way it has time to process if there's any errors, or maybe you didn't have your tax return handy and then all of a sudden you're getting prompted to ask tax return questions. This way it gives you enough time to get it printed, sit back down, do whatever you need so that you're not rushing through this. You can go through clearly, concisely, read the help documentation. Maybe you need to pause and take a break. Gives you the time to do all of those things. Schools do have what we call priority deadlines. You want to get in your applications ahead of those points because it makes you eligible for the most financial aid that is on the table. Depending on when you apply to school, you can apply later, but I have that conversation with the financial aid office to make sure that you have what you need by the time that they need it. And then you do file your FAFSA every single year. So sometimes it can be tricky to pick the FAFSA for the right year. The way that it's easy enough to remember this is you pick the FAFSA cycle based on the school year. So right now, if you are a high school senior, and you're planning to go to college next fall, which is the fall of 26 and the spring of 27, you want to file your 26-27 FAFSA. But maybe you're a high school senior and you're graduating in December and you want to start maybe taking some community college classes this spring to get ready, then you would want to file your 25-26 FAFSA because it's the school year of fall of 25 where we are now, and spring of 2026, which is where you're going to be next spring. So 25-26. If you wanted to, say, take some classes at a community college this spring, and then you wanted to continue at that community college or a 4-year college next fall, then you could actually file both of your FAFSAs right now. And then just remember that next October 1st is when you would want to apply for your 27-28 FAFSA, which sounds crazy hearing it now, but it'll be here before you know it. After you've applied for financial aid, and I'll keep this even more brief because we're not quite there yet in the process, but you want to start thinking about your strategy for applying to scholarships. Again, start close to home. If you have a school counselor or a resource librarian or even a financial aid office that you can talk to, maybe your employer, your parents' employer, check with all of those people, apply to those scholarships, whatever resources are available to you, because you want to be a big fish in a small pond, right? Then you want to be a big fish in a medium pond. So you're going to look at the New Hampshire and New England scholarships. Granted, Advance has a scholarship. We actually have 4 categories. If you are qualified for all 4 categories, I encourage you to apply for all 4 categories. You can rinse and reuse some of those college essays, supplementals, things like that. If we're asking a similar question to New Hampshire Charitable, you can write an essay that fulfills both and then spend some time tweaking a sentence here or there. And that way you've saved yourself a little bit of time and you've met the criteria and really answered the question. Then you look at New England, some really great sources for that, Stephen Phillips Memorial Foundation and the Red Sox Foundation. And then you look at the National Scholarship Search. And at that point, you're a big fish in a really, really big pond, probably like the ocean. So considering how can you make that pond smaller? Is there something that makes you uniquely you? Or do I want a pond that has cold water or warm water? Picking your scholarship site well so that you know, okay, this scholarship site is going to help me meet the goals that I have. After you've applied for financial aid and you've been admitted into the school, at that point, when your form is processed, the college's financial aid office is going to put together what we call your financial aid award offer letter. Um, uh, these are not apples to apples, right? You're thinking, oh, it's going to show every school's cost of attendance, and then it's going to show my financial aid, right? Sometimes they get a little finicky, they get tricky, or if it's your first time looking at them, feel free. We have an appointment type where you can come and sit down with somebody on our team and we'll go through that with you. We'll help you get them maybe apples to applesauce or apples to apples is the ideal. That way you can see, okay, this is the gap that I have to cover at each of the schools. These are my sources that I might have resources for, and this is my plan. And we'll kind of talk forward through those things and we can help you figure out things like return on investment and lots of other really cool tips and tricks. But again, that's usually a little bit later in the process. You'll probably be seeing more of that in February, or if you're playing early action, early decision, or maybe you're an athletic recruit and you already have some of those numbers, probably have that conversation now so that you can kind of make that plan, figure out what financial aid is available to you, and then we can focus on how to actually cover that gap so you can enjoy things like the rest of your senior year and all of those wonderful things. That way you have a little bit less stress and you're making an educated decision that you feel confident about. So this is what we're gonna have covered for tonight. Nice and fast, super basic, right? If you want a little bit more information about financial aid, we are hosting later this week a Financial Aid 101 webinar. That's going to be an hour long and it's going to cover lots and lots of wonderful things. It's going to cover more information on that contributor question. We'll talk about what types of things count as income, assets, where to put those bank account balances in what box on the form. We'll talk about some cost saving programs here in New Hampshire, as well as a little bit more information on scholarships. We'll have some more specific information on that and lots of more fun things. So if you are interested in that, you can sign up for that webinar just like you did on this one on our website under that upcoming events page. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, maybe there's one already linked there. Go back to our main page and see Financial Aid 101 or Financial Aid Night or whatever our wonderful comms team has decided to title it. It will be there for you. So I want to say thank you for taking your time tonight to learn a little bit more about financial aid. If you want some fast tips and tricks that are verified, you can follow us on Instagram and learn some more about financial aid. I know there's a whole lot of people on Instagram right now telling you a whole lot of things. TikTok too. Feel free to follow us on social media. We also have a LinkedIn page if that's more your speed. If you have any questions, you can always contact us. We have a phone line and an email, both of which are monitored from 8 to 5 every day. So if it's a fast question when you're filing your FAFSA, or you've got a question about anything or everything, or you want to book an appointment with us, you can reach us through there, as well as schedule an appointment with us. You can find that directly on our website. And if you have any feedback about this presentation or anything else that you've seen from us, you can use that far right QR code to send us a question, comment, concern. That way we can tailor our content in the future. So right now I am going to stop the recording and then